definition of highway, and Forest Service, I think, is under the impression or using the data, if you will, that the CHP has control or is using the basis of closing some of the roads based on what the definition of highway. And we have some folks from the state and the OHV department that have stated otherwise and have attended some of our board meetings in the past to help make sure some OHV areas are open through the county, that the state was looking at designating it as highway, therefore closing OHV use. So in any case, the effort's ongoing and to keep as much of the OHV trails open as possible. With BLM's been very good. We haven't really had any issues with road closure with them. It just seems to be mainly the Forest Service. But we're working together, and in fairness to the Forest Service, they've been tremendous partners in this, and our meetings have been well attended. There was 2 representatives from the Plymouth Forest in attendance last night, and they've been showing up on a regular basis, so they make a big effort to come and participate. Unfortunately, we didn't have anybody there from the Lassen last night, but we had a good meeting, and we'll continue to make progress there with everybody's help and involvement. So.
I just have one other thing to add. The California, this is for information, something to keep your eye on. The California Fish and Wildlife Service is looking at upgrading. Right now, the northern spotted owl is threatened, and they're looking at moving that out to be endangered. Something you might want to keep your eye
on. Thank you. Okay, this time we'll go to item D2. It's a proclamation honoring Morgan Higgins and James Davidson. Only the chairman would do the proclamation, but I'd like to throw this one to the supervisor.
Open. Proclamation in honor of Morgan Higgins and James Davidson. Whereas Morgan Higgins, age 16, and James Davidson, age 18, on March 13, 2014, were on their way home from Aden on Highway 139 when they noticed a fire on the roof of Scott and Stephanie Withrow residence. And whereas Morgan Higgins and James Davidson stopped at the residence and alerted the occupants, the grandparents and children, of the roof on the fire, the boys placed a call to 911 and requested the fire department. And whereas Morgan Higgins and James Davidson assisted the grandfather in locating a ladder and used it to gain access to the roof, the boys used the garden hose to suppress the fire long enough to keep it from spreading until the Aden Fire Protection District and CAL FIRE from Beaver Battalion arrived to fully contain the fire. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Lassen County that Morgan Higgins and James Davidson be commended for their selfless act to assist their fellow citizens in their time of need. The foregoing proclamation was adopted today on Tuesday. So, thank you guys.
Christopherson. I'm the acting district ranger on the west side of the North Alabama Forest, and that covers the Big Valley Ranger District and Devil Hill. So about 800,000 acres on the west side of the North. I was invited to come speak to you today about the Big Valley Sustained Yield Unit. To give some history on that unit, what it is, and why it was set up. So the Big Valley Sustained Yield Unit was established in 1950, and it encompasses about 220,000 acres. And it extends from the north side of Big Valley, wraps around to the east, and then comes around to the south. And the intent of that sustained yield unit is to provide sustained timber production to the communities located within Big Valley. And so that's Lookout, Ayden, Beaver, and New Beaver. So that's just one of the intents. And in the handout that I just gave you, so there's a map of that unit. And then there's also a page on the front of that that shows, gives you some general information about the unit, the history of it, why it was set up. Also included in the handouts is a letter from Jack Ward Thomas, who was the chief of the Forest Service, and the letter is dated October 18th, 1994. And so this provides a policy update to what's included in our 1991 land management plan. And so this is the direction for how the Big Valley unit is supposed to operate. And I'm going to be reading some excerpts from the updated policy statement just to make sure that I capture the verbiage correctly. So the purpose of the Act of March 29th, 1944 is to stabilize communities, forest industries, employment, and taxable forest wealth, to assure a continuous and ample supply of forest products, and to secure the benefits of the forest in the regulation of water supply and stream flow, prevent soil erosion, amelioration of climate, and preservation of wildlife. So the purpose behind the unit is timber production, sustained timber production, but it's also to help manage that unit in a sustained way. One of the interesting points about this unit is it's one of the few remaining sustained timber yield units, I believe, within the Forest Service. And there's just a handful of them that are left in existence. And it directs that 80%, and I'm reading down page 2 of this handout under sale of timber, and it directs that 80% of the timber, the regulated timber that is harvested within that unit be milled or processed within one of the communities within Big Valley. Okay, so the next element of this is that it puts forth an allowable sale quantity, which is an estimate of how much can be harvested annually on a sustainable basis. And this has been a point of discussion in the past and I think recently that I've been involved with. And in 1991, with the analysis that was done at that point, it estimated a sustained yield of approximately 9 million board feet per year. In 2003, and if you turn to in 2003, another analysis was completed by a gentleman by the name of Klaus Mark, and he was a statistician in the Forest Service. And that is on the last page of the handout. And that analysis looked at modern constraints that we have as well as the land allocations and reevaluated the production capability of this unit. And it went from a production of 9 million down to 5.4 assumptions that Klaus used in his determination, this could be an overestimate as well, because it includes things like overstory removal in large clear cuts. And with the current political climate and the science that we have that drives what we do on our federal land, those options of management are not at the forefront of science and how we manage the forest today. And so the estimate of 5.4 is probably more like a 4.5 million board foot estimate. Are there any questions about any of this that I presented?
Yeah, do you have contracts now to hard September? Approximately how much?
So we have 4 sales that were defaulted, and we're currently reworking several of the sales to get better volume estimates. And as far as the volume totals in those 4 sales, I think they're around 10 to 12 million worth combined for those. And right now, we are not, so I'm not sure, so I'm just going to start with some of that. So yes, we do have sales in the works. Okay, so
You said that they were faulted?
the sales were awarded, and some of them up to 10 years ago, and the purchaser defaulted on those.
Go ahead with your
Okay.
explanation, why did it fault?
So, as far as why they defaulted, I'm not aware of particulars as to why the purchaser defaulted, but they weren't able to complete the contracts as specified in that time frame. So where we are now is there is a local interest in restarting the mill here in Beaver that is within the sustained yield unit. And we have met with a consultant that's been analyze the economics of that, and it's TSS Consultants, and we've also been in discussion with Next Bank. And so that's what I have for you this morning. I also have Supervisor Ann Carlson with me, and she might be able to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, more questions from board members?
Are you guys in negotiations with the guys on the mill?
Well, we're not negotiating with them. We've been providing some information to them about what sort of timber sales we have planned, what's in the near future and what's further out. But I think Next Bank, who would be the financial banking behind, backing behind that investment, are really the ones that are working most closely with them now. And they're out of Texas. So we've been having conversations really with them, trying to assure that there is material that's going to come out of the sustained yield unit. I've been also encouraging them to look outside the sustained yield unit, because we have sales that will come up outside as well that wouldn't be too far a haul distance and would be viable, supply of material into the mill as well if they wanted to bid on that. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Are there any plans to, I forget how to phrase this, to loosen the reins on burnt timber in the Forest Service? Is there anything currently out there that's being discussed as far as timeframes when you get these large fires that burn? Because the blue fire, for instance, the timber's, lots of it's still up there, rotting on the stumps. Is there any regulation change coming down the pipe to try to get this material processed faster?
So what slows the Forest Service down a lot of times is we have to do a National Environmental Policy Act analysis prior to cutting the trees. You do a NEPA analysis. We can request a special emergency salvage determination, which helps speed that up. It allows us to go ahead and start to harvest prior to actually the NEPA being completed. And so I know on some of the large sales, some of the large fires this last year, and in the salvage efforts, including Rim, Aspen, and American fires, that emergency salvage determination in ESD was requested and granted and helped speed it along. And they're moving fairly quickly, actually, on their harvest. I'm not familiar with the blue sale and, the blue fire and the sales that came after that. Do you know if they requested that, or?
I don't know what the MoDOT did locally, but I know on the Plumas, we just had the Chips fire 2 years ago, and we got that out in record time, is because we did get the ESD, Emergency Situation Determination. And then also just the strategy that gets picked on, or that gets decided on at the forest level, has a huge determination in how it actually moves forward. And so it's also if resource surveys have been done on a timely basis, maybe just before the fire, that can really help accelerate, a timely, removal of that burnt timber. So I don't know all of what happened here, but I've heard blue fire brought up a couple times. But yeah, if there's a delay, a critical delay in some of those elements, all of a sudden your timber value is shot, so you can't afford to go.
Well, that's the question I have in terms of the follow-up, Mr. Chairman, and that is, when you do this NEPA analysis, does it also include in that analysis the consequences of not, in a timely fashion, being able to respond? Because I think that's one of the biggest concerns that folks generally have, is you get so wrapped up in the paperwork and the red tape that by the time you get done, the red tape itself should be part of the analysis to try to expedite in these kind of situations. But I'm glad to know they have this emergency provision, because time is of the essence once a fire is swept through an area. And I know the Chits fire that we have had reports from the forest supervisor about how that was expedited, and they were able to take advantage of the bulk of the product there that could be salvaged. But that required a Herculean effort on the part of the Lassen forest to do that.
Yeah, and a couple things along those lines. As soon as the trees burn and die like that, insects often move in and the wood deteriorates very quickly. So you're absolutely right. Your concerns about moving quickly and being able to actually regain some value out of that wood are warranted. I mean, it is an issue. One thing on the fires that occurred this last year on Rim, American, and Aspen fires is that our regional office called all forests to send people to these areas to get the survey work done, to get the NEPA analysis done. And so people from all the different forest specialists actually went to these areas and helped to get that work done, and that helped move it along. So the individual forest that suffered the fire wasn't on the hook for having to do all the analysis, so that really helped too. And then sort of as relief to the forests that were giving up people, we every year get assigned a certain target that we try to put out for timber sales. And we were relieved of that by sending our employees, all the material coming out of the salvage covered our target. And so that really helped us a lot to contribute towards those efforts.
And as an additional concern, and I think this would be pertinent to the sustained unit here, is that when you have a fire and you do the salvaging, what is the practice or policy in terms of reforestation? Because if you're trying to develop or maintain a sustained area, having that reforesting is probably just as important, if not more so, than the salvaging. Is that part of this NEPA process?
Yeah, the Forest Service is actually legally required to replant after a fire. So you always see us go in and replant those areas. And then, yeah, you asked about the analysis. We always include a no action analysis, a no action alternative as part of our analysis, which helps to cover that. If you don't do anything, what's going to happen?
Well, I understand the no action, but I think it should also have a delayed action. I mean, I think it's really kind of different from a no action.
It is.
Delayed action shows the consequences of...
Even waiting a few years can make a real difference. And it depends on the stand, and we have people that go in and analyze it, but some areas get hit really hard with bugs and other areas not as bad, even within an individual fire area. So, yeah, good questions.
Yeah, a couple of things, I asked Chris to come and present this to us, and I thank you very much for doing that, Chris. It kind of goes back when I was a little kid, as this young lady right here, Hope Dodson, there was 3 sawmills in this valley. There was one in Dayton, there was one here in Beaver, and there was one in Newview. And now there's not even a sawmill left in Lassen County. And, it's kind of sad and unfortunate that there's, things get shut down because of environmental. People just, 45 cents a stem will shut down a $3 million, or 3 million board foot timber sale. And so we have a very unique deal with sustainability. We can help keep employment here and resources here within the Schumann area. And that's why I asked Chris to come, because we need to keep that here if we can as part of our economic development, as William stated earlier. And so, anyway, I just wanted to, I asked Chris to do that, and I'm very thankful that he did. He did a pretty good job. And thank you.
Thank you for arranging that. Is there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this before we move on?
I just wanted to ask, I know a few years ago when the sustained yield unit was discussed, we were told here in the valley that if there was no mill in our sustained unit area, it could go back to Congress and we could lose our sustained yield unit. So is there a timeline for if we don't have a mill for a certain number of years that would actually go back to Congress and we would lose that?
So I'll say I'm not the expert on the policy and how this plays out, but my best guess is that until we undergo our next land management plan revision and review, that nothing's going to happen with this land allocation. And so it's, and we're, years out from that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's take up item D5. It's the resource conservation
Maybe just to kind of tail into the previous discussion, I have a handout there. I gave you guys the second page, actually. If you look at the bottom of the second page, you'll see a little asterisk down there. It says, currently the PIT RCD staff has been working with NextBank in an attempt to restart the Beaver Mill cogeneration facility. Great progress has been made, and the target date has been set for October 1, 2014. An additional project has just begun for the site, making this Beaver Mill facility even more viable venture. Discussions have even begun for a processing facility on site to turn sugar beets into biodiesel. So, kind of getting back to that previous discussion, the sustained yield unit, here some time ago, it was brought before, an opportunity was, I guess, presented to the Pitt Resource Conservation District to get involved with this bank in Texas and try to be maybe the local team that could work on putting something together here to bring back a mill into our area. The Resource Conservation District is a pretty big district. We cover Modoc and Lassen County. We have a 5-member board. Currently we're short one. We lost John Rogers last year, but we're trying to get his spot refilled. But we got a 5-member board that represents both counties. We work on a wide variety of conservation or resource issues. That back page, if you're still on that, kind of shows a few projects going back to 2010. with us. His name is Todd Sloat. And Todd does a really outstanding job getting out and finding projects to work on. He also does a really good job of writing grants to get money to fund these projects. We work with a wide variety of funding groups, Sierra Nevada Conservancy, Department of Water Resources, NRCS is a big partner of ours, and we've even done some work with the Department of Conservation here in California. You can see there's Ash Creek. If you'll notice, there's three different items there regarding Ash Creek. There's phase 1, 2, and 3. That was a big project that actually California Department of Fish and Game came to us and asked us to pursue funding to do a watershed restoration project on the wildlife area out there. It's been a pretty extensive project. We have one more leg of that to do, and I think we're hoping to get that done by early fall. You see we have three different basic watersheds, or there's more, but if you look at, there's Ash Creek, and there's Willow Creek, and there's Butte Creek, and even creeks off to the north. I know Turner Creek is in our district, but we do a lot of watershed projects. Then if you look at that first page, that kind of gets into our partnership with Lassen County Fire Safe Council, which has been ongoing for 11 years. We've done around 14,500 acres of restoration projects in cooperation with Lassen County Fire Safe Council. You can see there, there's some of our partners are listed there, NRCS and Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and of course the County Fire Safe Council. Some of these are a combined juniper and meadow restoration project. Several of these have been geared around sage grouse. Everybody knows that sage grouse has been an ongoing issue in certain parts of the county. Some of these have been strictly fuel reduction projects around subdivided areas around homes. The lookout, if you look there, you'll see under 2012 there's a Fire Safe Council lookout, and that was a pretty extensive project over there in the ranchettes on the Modoc County side. But we do projects in both counties, and we work on both fuel reduction and sage step restoration, and then also meadow restoration. And then the mill goes hand in hand with a lot of what we do. That was one reason why, as a board, we decided to move forward in working with Next Bank, and we're really hoping that we can actually get something going, because a lot of these fuels reduction projects, if they had a cogeneration facility within the Big Valley area, all those chips too, we wouldn't be hauling them as far away as Wendell or Bernie, and so it would bring down our cost per acre if we could get something going. And then the same with some of the fuels reduction projects, if there's any millable timber to come off of those projects, if we had a mill right here, it would make it a lot more cost effective. I know on the agenda there you have a support letter, a request for a support letter on a conservation innovative grant. And if you'll notice there, from 2006 to 2009, we worked on $500,000 of conservation innovative grant. And if you look to the right of it, you'll see a matching number there. That $500,000 got us another $1.8 million. And so our goal, we work, Tom Esgate, of course, he's our guy on the fuels reduction and the juniper projects and the sage step restoration stuff. He is really good at, starting with $5 and turning it into $25. And we've expanded the scope of these projects, and his work is really what's raised that number, that 14,500 acres treated. And maybe the most important thing that I've always wanted to see happen from a lot of these projects since I've been on board, I wanted the RCD and the local private landowners to move this sage step restoration and juniper work in a direction that pretty soon we start getting agencies, the land management agencies, mainly the Forest Service and BLM, actually jumping on board and doing stuff with us. And we got kind of an interesting phone call here not too long ago. Tom received a call from Peter Hall of the Alturas office of the BLM, and he specifically went after a large chunk of the BLM budget to put towards more safe step restoration projects in an area that the RCD had already started. So now we're just expanding these areas. And so to me, that was kind of the icing on the cake of years of work and a lot of grant dollars spent. Now the agencies are starting to say, hey, we want to get involved and we want to do this too. Because we're, I guess if you do something long enough, maybe we make it popular. That's what we're hoping. But anyway, that's just kind of an overview of some of both our Fire Safety Council cooperative stuff and then our watershed project. Charmy Stevenson is our business manager, and she does an awful lot of legwork on a lot of these things. I know she's been working a lot with the Next Bank folks. And then I see Tim Babcock here in the room. He's on our board. I don't think we have anybody else in the room on the board. But anyway, we got a pretty good group, and everybody that's on the board, we like doing what we do. We like getting projects. We like putting people to work. And I know Russ Hawkins, the local logging contractor, he was really excited about getting a lot of this work on the lookout site in the Kramer Ranch because he was able to keep his crew home and he didn't have to go out of the area. And so, our goal is to put people to work and to make projects work within the district. Anyway, with that, I would maybe just encourage you to go ahead and vote on writing that letter of support for our next Conservation Innovative Grant, so we can continue doing this stuff in the future.
Before you go there, thanks for your presentation. I appreciate your work. And this time I'd like to see if any board members have questions, and then we'll go to the public.
How long have you been on this,
2000?
13 years?
Yeah. I think it's around 2000. And I think going back to that default question, some of the sales, I think some of that had to do with the management that was there, just didn't make it work and just miss out. We're hoping that those sales, in working with the Forest Service folks, that we can keep those sales open and put them through right here.
So all the equipment, everything's still in?
There's been a lot of damage. We've been working with Next Bank. There's been a lot of stuff that was actually, I think, people want steel metal and stuff to sell is going in there. So it's a matter of putting in a sawmill, a working sawmill, getting it up and running, and that's it. Next Bank they want to make it work. They want to make something there because right now they have a piece of property that without it, it's worth nothing. So they're interested in trying to get things up and running.
Two more questions.
Sure.
The environmental condition of that property, is it going to make it difficult to reopen it?
I don't know that. That's something that you have to ask the team, and I can probably get a response back. I haven't heard of anything bad yet. The cogeneration plant, I think the worst thing that happened there is that just stuff got froze, water pipes broke and flooded, and things are just, it's kind of in disarray, but it's our hope we can get it back and running.
How many people did that mill employ when it was going? Ballpark.
I wish Charlene was here.
That's a
Ballpark.
Tim said maybe about 150 people.
At the top, we used to be, had a pretty sure it was 150 people. And then that didn't include all your loggers, your trucks, and everything else. We was for.
Well, one of the problems that the electrical people that were buying the generation from the chips, it wasn't feasible for them to.
Yeah, there's some question too that there's a lot of work has to be done, not only with the contracts with the Forest Service, but also the power contracts. And so, it's a matter of working with PG&E and stuff. It's not going to be easy, but we have somebody that owns the property that wants to make it a better place, and we have an interest, and so we're working and trying to make something work. And, even if long term, a cogeneration or large sawmill is not there, at least taking a piece of property and doing something economically beneficial for the community. I mean, that's where I hope.
150 jobs would be very beneficial to your community. And I'm sure you'll keep Supervisor Alba, what's going on, and he'll keep us informed, but you guys got my support.
Really good. Any more questions from board members?
I'd like to hear one. Bob, thank you for doing a nice report. And I just wanted to point out, what all the projects that our city's done, and I sat on this board before I was a supervisor, I had to resign, unfortunately, for being a supervisor. And this right here, the projects they've done, this is part of my complaint about Honey Lake, our city.
I was thinking, as I was listening, I was thinking, is that supposed to work?
I got into water master issue, I don't need it.
We're ready to do
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And as I was listening, I was thinking the same thing. You know,
This is what Honey Lake has done, the same thing here, it's phenomenal, they just get off, get rid of that water.
Oh, my bucket's right, give it to the water master, they can get back to doing this.
I got just one other point too, I'd like to throw in there, because if I didn't, Roger Kirkland would probably get after me. Something that maybe the counties need to, we need to kind of continue to not let this issue go. The RCD has been working cooperatively with California Department of Fish and Game. I refuse to call Fish and Wildlife, but anyway, Fish and Game about the wildlife area and doing haying and grazing and farming out there on the wildlife area. For those of you who don't know, that what is now a wildlife area used to be about a 14,000 acre working ranch, and we ran about 1,500 head of cattle and put up a lot of hay and employed some people. We've been working ever since we got this meadow restoration project to get it done. Of course, there's usually always a little rest issue after these projects, and we need to get through maybe a year or two of that. But we're working with Cal Fish and Game, we're working with the local manager to try and get back to grazing that, get back to haying it, and there has been in recent times some problems at the state level within Cal Fish and Game regarding these wildlife areas and management of them, and then also the cooperation with somebody local like the RCD. And so our goal is to get back to that, start getting some more beneficial use out of that state-owned land out there that they haven't paid taxes on or don't have no road. So, thank you.
Thanks. Is there any members of the community who have any questions of the presentation? So thank you, Bob, thanks, it's very good, thanks. So the action request that is to approve a letter and authorize him to sign it. We also know Sam.
There's a sample letter in the packet, all it lacks is the, letter to the crews.
Oh, okay.
It lacks our letterhead and your signature.
Okay. Oh, so that letter is, we believe this changes.
Put that out.
Okay, so,
I'll
say that. Move in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you. We're going to take a short 5-minute recess and we'll come back and take up item B6. Take a 5-minute recess.